Tiger!
Fight! 1, ready, go!
Virtua Fighter, in my opinion, is the ultimate 3D fighting game.
Created by the legendary game designer Yu Suzuki. It surfaced in 1993 for the arcade. It is a game that puts two players, two characters in a ring position for one-on-one MMA style combat.
Virtua Fighter was, while it's not, I wouldn't say it's realistic, it does make a really strong attempt to be authentic. It doesn't have any sort of, fireballs or supers or weapons. It's just pure, hand-to-hand combat. And I think that almost now more than ever, that seems to be a rarity in fighting games.
Ring out!
One of the things that really stands out is just the way that you approach each other.
You have actually the most amount of tools available to you as the attacker and defender when you're point blank. And what makes Virtua Fighter so unique is that you have to, at the higher levels, really become comfortable with rapid, quick, incidental decision making.
The input system is very different from a lot of other games. You have punch, kick, guard, and instead of doing rolling motions typical to 2D fighting games or the DP, the dragon punch motions, it's usually a combination of directional inputs and double taps in order for your moves to come out. And everybody's move list is pretty massive.
A lot of people that play fighting games want to be able to express themselves in their fighting games, and the easiest way to do that is, of course, if the game itself has expression built in at the character level like that. So I think that's quite an attractive feature of it.
When I first got into the Virtua Fighter series, it was pretty much, I seen it at the arcades. I remember, putting the quarter in, playing it, and it was just something totally different.
I was at my friend's house who lived down the block from me, and he had a Sega Saturn, and I didn't, so we'd go over there and play Virtua Fighter Remix.
Virtua Fighter Remix was pretty much an upgraded version of VF1 for the Saturn. I played it, and what attracted to me was the amount of, it was 3D technology. It was the first 3D console that I owned as a kid. I was 4 years old playing a fighting game. This is what actually introduced me to fighting games as a whole, really, because of Virtua Fighter Remix, and the rest was history.
My brother got an issue of PlayStation Magazine in the mail, issue 55 it was. The cover had Virtua Fighter 4, I think it said something like, the best fighting game ever made. My younger brother, who goes by the Argonaut, he picked up this magazine and he was hyping it up. He's like, we gotta get this game, guys, we gotta play this out. Now, we weren't really big on fighting games. Once we picked it up, we got our asses kicked, but from that moment, we all fell in love with the game. It became the fighting game for all three of us.
I saw that Virtua Fighter 5 Ultimate Showdown was just out on PlayStation for PS Plus, and I flipped out, because I really wanted to learn this game and I really wanted to play it, so I did purchase it with my PS Plus membership day one, and I've just been playing it ever since.
I didn't get into Virtua Fighter, the competitive VF scene, until 2017 with No Matter the Cost. No Matter the Cost was the first VF tournament I ever entered, and I was introduced to the VF community. I forgot how welcoming these guys are and stuff like that, and it was amazing.
So my competitive journey with Virtua Fighter began with Virtua Fighter 2. Now, when Virtua Fighter 2 was released in the arcades, it was a huge phenomenon. It drew massive crowds, not just of people playing, but just spectating as well.
I was studying abroad in Japan from late 2002 to 2003, and that's when I was playing Virtua Fighter 4 Evolution in arcades.
And I remember I went to Club Sega Akihabara, and another player sat down, and you can't really see them because when you're playing in the arcades there, all the machines are head to head, so they're sitting behind the arcade machine. Someone sat down and they picked Wolf as well, so it was Wolf versus Wolf. I think he was, taking it easy on me a little bit. Maybe he was trying some new things out, but either way, he was playing me and I managed to get a win against him. And I was feeling great, and I was like, I finally beat this guy. Like, this guy was a really strong player. I didn't know who he was, but I noticed he didn't hit rematch. And then he came around from the side of the other side of the machine, and it was just this Japanese fellow smoking a cigarette, and he sort of just walked up to me really casually, with a cigarette in his mouth, and he went, very strong. And he walked up and shook my hand, and I was like, oh, this is great, you know?
Wound up meeting a lot of sort of the big names in the Japanese VF scene. This was kind of when VF4 was at its peak, so everybody was just excited and playing, and it really was fantastic.
So the character I main in Virtua Fighter, as a Virtua Fighter 5 Ultimate Showdown is Go Hinogami.
The character that I main is Aoi Umeno Koji.
So I mean Akira.
Leon Rafale.
Vanessa.
Wolf Hawkfield. In fact, I'll just... Hang on, I got the t-shirt on right now.
So the character I play, her name is Eileen, and she uses the monkey kung fu style, or koken. She uses trickery, she uses monkey stances, giggles, laughs in your face. She's very fast and annoying, and she's just the embodiment of rage-inducing play.
One thing about Go is the amount of sabakis that he has. He has a throw sabaki that has a very strict timing, but it is so satisfying once you pull it off. You think he'll grab you, but instead the tables will turn and he'll go to a Sakami position. And that's it.
Akira's always been one of the more difficult ones. He's known for having a very difficult move list and a lot of execution requirements. The thing with high execution characters, of course, is that you've got to have the time to learn them. So it wasn't really until the pandemic hit that I've been able to sit down and actually sit and learn a difficult character. I've really enjoyed learning Akira.
One of my favorite things to do with Wolf Hawkfield is he's got a low punch reversal move, right? So if your opponent tries to do a low punch, he will sort of swat the punch away with his hand, and then he does a amateur wrestling style, rear waist lock as he goes behind them and then shoves them forward. And then after that, if you've done it just right, you can then input a throw, and while they're back turned, Wolf picks them up onto his shoulders and does a move called the Burning Driver. It is the single most damaging throw, and it might be the single most damaging move in the entire game. And it's the most satisfying feeling that I can have in a fighting game ever.
There's a lot of great highlights. You can't pick just one.
Participated in Flash Cups held by Chief Flash himself. I participated in DreamHack Online, NLBC, and the more I competed, the more it showed me that I have potential to be a better player.
My personal highlights with the game would include being an EVO finalist 2 times, as well as representing Australia at the World Cyber Games. Maybe more important than those would be all the travel opportunities I've enjoyed playing this game. In that this game can bring people of different backgrounds, cultures, languages together to speak or fight a common language.
The most recent big milestone, personal highlight of mine is when I competed at Defend the North. We had 2 players from Japan that came. We had Tetsuko Yamada and we had Homestay Akira. And I essentially played both of them as much as I possibly could during that tournament. And as a result, in my very first set with Homestay Akira, I will always remember this set. I wasn't able to repeat it, but I always remember the first 2 sets where we fought 2 matches and I won. That was amazing because for years I'd had people tell me, you're never going to be able to beat someone from Japan. I was like, why would I limit myself like that? Like why would I hold that in my mind that just because of players from a certain region I can't ever beat them? That never made any sense to me.
One of my personal favorite memories of Virtua Fighter 4 was basically going down to the local arcade in Melbourne, Blue House, and seeing the arcade owner install some new cabinets, and me and my brother were there. We were like, oh, I wonder what game it's gonna be. Oh, it's got 3 buttons, maybe it's Virtua Fighter. And then I was like, maybe it is Virtua Fighter. Oh my gosh. And when the arcade owner turned on the cabinet, it was, oh my gosh, it's the new Virtua Fighter, oh my gosh. And the arcade owner saw that me and my brother were totally freaking out, and he said, can you guys test the machine for me? And we're like, sure! So my very first game of Virtua Fighter 4 that I played was a free game at the arcades.
VF community is virtualfighter.com. We're there. I think of that place as the encyclopedia of Virtua Fighter. That's where you go to get data that's been vetted very and peer reviewed essentially.
It's been there for years and years. The guy who runs it, Mike, is a totally awesome guy.
He's a great resource with fully detailed command lists with frame data, combo lists, and a very comprehensive wiki as well. Within the wiki, there are many strategy guides and even starting out guides for all the characters. So once again, if you're ever short on resources or ideas or things to look up and read, virtuafighter.com is the place for you.
So far, with the release of Ultimate Showdown, the VF community is starting to grow a bit. Like, I'm starting to see, other fighting game players from different communities, try the game out. I remember Juicebox was playing the game. Juicebox has been playing VF a lot.
And I was thinking about playing a couple of different 2D fighters. And I had met Tricky in the past. I'd followed him on Twitter, and Tricky tweeted, "Why not Virtua Fighter? You could do it. Come on." I started learning about how the mechanics work, what +4 means, what +6 means, what a fuzzy guard is. And I'm like, oh wait, this is actually really interesting. Oh wait, I'm actually playing against... Wait, I can make reads like this? Whoa. This character is way more cool than I thought they were. So the game would not let go of me after that, and I've always loved the idea of visiting Japan and playing in the arcades and meeting the players, and Virtua Fighter is extremely popular in Japan. So after getting into Virtua Fighter, I'm like, what am I waiting for? So that's one of the factors that made me finally apply for a passport, which I have. Hopefully that'll happen in the next year or two. I can take a trip over there and have fun.
So if you're a new person, right? You're just seeing this video, you just saw Virtua Fighter, and you're like, this looks kind of cool. How do I get into it?
Go to Twitch, put in Virtua Fighter 5 - Ultimate Showdown, and see who's playing it. You'll see Juicebox, VF Numbers, myself, Dosha, Chief Flash, iFix. Jump in there, ask questions. And then of course the other obstacles is if you don't have a PS4, but you're going to locals and you're going to weeklies and people have it, jump in. Ask them, hey, can I play with you guys? I've never played Virtua Fighter. I'd like to start.
Go in training mode, go in tutorial, even go into arcade mode and just play with the characters and see who feels good, whose buttons just feel good to press. Then if you're past that point of like, I just want to press buttons, right? I would say learn your character's moves, their moveset. Learn the ranges that these attacks will hit and whiff. And so learn the frames of your moves. It will guide you toward what the game designers want you to do. Well, they're saying this move is for this purpose. Every move has a purpose. And if you learn to read the frames of a move, you can infer what the function of every attack was designed to be for.
I think a lot of people will probably tell you that this, as a fighting game, changes the way that you look at all fighting games. It's really high octane, really high pressure. Once you learn to deal with that in an environment where that's always hitting you all of the time, you don't get a chance to back away from your opponent and breathe a little bit. You do find that it gets a lot easier in other games where they have the brief moments of that. You go, oh, that's fine, I deal with that for 45 seconds at a time normally. As a result of that as well, you've always got to have your brain switched on and thinking, so it kind of helps you manage your mental stack and manage that side of it as well, so you get a lot more comfortable around the more tricky guessing games.
The people in the community, they're just so amazing. They're so positive. They're so, pro new players, because most of the people in the community, they are, OGs, they're veterans, and they've been playing Virtua Fighter for years.
As a writer and somebody in the industry, if it weren't for VF kind of inspiring me to seek out my game development heroes, learn about the process of making games and things like that, that really kind of set me on the path to where I am today. I've also met a whole bunch of cool people in the States and in Japan who just really love Virtua Fighter, and yeah, that's pretty fantastic.
If you have the means to do it and just want to give it a shot, please do so. Not only are you going to support a great company, you're going to support a great studio, a great game studio, but you're going to also help Virtua Fighter come back. Virtua Fighter is what the FGC needs right now. I really want Virtua Fighter to continue to be that bright light in the future of the FGC.